Hey everybody, we're going to read the very last part of Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life. Actually, we're not going to read it, I'm going to read it and you're going to listen. You might be following along, which is understandable as well. Other audience member other than my cats is the drug dealer that lives like next door over there. He's standing outside my apartment window as he does a lot. But he just got back from work and he's standing out there for some reason. But once again, we're going to be reading the CODA, and this book was actually due yesterday on July 10th, 2008. Today is July 11th. So I'm going to be returning this book when I'm done with this little portion right here. And I think it was a really good book. I'm going to read his other book, Maps of Meaning. And this is probably, out of all the books I've read this year, this is probably the best book that I've read this year. A couple books I've reread, which is Catcher in the Rye, and another book, Tuesdays with Maury. Those books are also available on this channel as well. The books that I didn't record myself reading, I guess those don't count. The next book that I'm going to be reading is this one right here, Anne Frank, The Diary of a Young Girl, Anne Frank. Sticking with the whole nonfiction thing, I prefer reading nonfiction. It's just my choice, my preference. I encourage you to read whatever you like, and if you're enjoying this, then you probably enjoy nonfiction as well. Alright, so we get on to this. CODA. What shall I do with my newfound pen of light? In late 2016, I traveled to Northern California to meet a friend and business associate. We spent an evening thinking and talking. At one point, he took a pen from his jacket and took a few notes. It was LED equipped and beamed light out of its tip, so that writing in the dark was made easier. Just another gadget, I thought. Later, however, in a more metaphorical frame of mind, I was struck quite deeply by the idea of pen of light. There was something symbolic about it, something metaphysical. We're all in the dark, after all, much of the time. We could all use something written with light to guide us along our way. I told him I wanted to do some writing while we sat and conversed, and I asked him if he would give me the pen as a gift. When he handed it over, I found myself inordinately pleased. Now I could write illuminated words in the darkness. Obviously, it wasn't important to do such a thing properly, so I said to myself in all seriousness, what shall I do with my newfound pen of light? There are 2 verses in the New Testament that pertain to such things. I've thought about them a lot. Ask and it shall be given to you. Seek and you shall find. Knock and it shall be upon you. For everyone who receives, the one who seeks finds, and to the one who knocks, the door will be opened. Matthew chapter 7, verse 7 through 7, and verse 8. At first glance, this seems like nothing but a testament to the magic of prayer and the sense of entreating God to grant favors. But God, whatever or whoever he may be, is no simple granter of wishes. When tempted by the devil himself in the desert, as we saw in rule number 7, pursue what is meaningful, not what is expedient. Even Christ himself was not willing to call upon his Father for a favor. Furthermore, every day the prayers of desperate people go unanswered. But maybe this is because the questions they contain are not phrased in the proper manner. Perhaps it is not reasonable to ask God to break the rules of physics every time we fall by the wayside or make a serious error. Perhaps in such times you can't put the cart before the horse and simply wish for your problem to be solved in some magical manner. Perhaps you could ask instead what you might have to do right now to increase your resolve, buttress your character, and find the strength to go on. Perhaps you could instead ask to see the truth. On many occasions in our nearly 30 years of marriage, my wife and I have had a disagreement, sometimes a deep disagreement. Our unity appeared to be broken at some unknowable, profound level, and we were not able to easily resolve the rupture by talking. We became trapped, instead, in emotional, angry, and anxious argument. We agreed that when such circumstances arose, we would separate briefly, she to one room, me to another. This was quite different, because it is hard to disengage in the heat of an argument when anger generates the desire to defeat and win. But it seems better than risking the consequences of a dispute that threatened to spiral out of control. Smart. Alone, trying to calm down, we would each ask ourselves the same simple question. What had we done to contribute to the situation we were arguing about? However small, however distant, we had each made some error. Then we would reunite and share the results of our questioning. Here's how I was wrong. The problem with asking yourself such a question is that you must truly want the answer. And the problem with doing that is that you won't like the answer. When you're arguing with someone, you want to be right and you want the other person to be wrong. Then it's them that has to sacrifice something and change, not you. And that's much preferable. If it's you that's wrong and you that must change, then you have to reconsider yourself, your memories of the past, your manner of being in the present, and your plans for the future. Then you must resolve to improve and figure out how to do that. Then you actually have to do that. That's exhausting. It takes repeated practice to initiate and to instantate the new perceptions and make the new actions habitual. It's much easier just not to realize, admit, and engage. It's much easier to turn your attention away from the truth and remain willfully blind. But it's at such a point that you must decide whether you want to be right or you want to have peace. You must decide whether to insist upon your absolute correctness of your view or to listen and negotiate. You don't have to get peace by being right, you just get to be right, while your partner gets to be wrong, defeated and wrong. Do that 10,000 times and your marriage will be over, or you wish it was. To choose the alternative, to seek peace, you have to decide that you want the answer more than you want to be right. That's the way out of the prison of your stubborn preconceptions. That's the prerequisite of negotiation. That's to truly abide by principle of rule 2. Treat someone like someone you're responsible for helping. Okay, that's true. One thing I want to add, though, that he needs to add another rule, because a lot of times in life when you admit that you're admit that you're wrong, the other person will try to take advantage of that. And they'll be like, I told you so, and they'll see what they can get from it. And then, later in the last few years, I've come to realize when I can admit when I'm wrong. But then, the other person's like, I win. And they think they're getting some prize or something, but it's like, okay. But it's such a point that you must decide whether, okay. My wife and I learned that if you ask yourself such a question and you genuinely desire the answer, no matter how disgraceful and terrible and shameful, then a memory of something you did that was stupid and wrong at some point in the general not distant enough past will arise from the depths of your mind. Then you can go back to your partner and reveal why you're an idiot and apologize sincerely, and that person can do the same for you and then apologize sincerely. And then you two idiots will be able to talk again. Perhaps that is the true prayer, the question. What have I done wrong, and what can I do now to set things at least a little bit more right? But your heart must be open to the terrible truth. You must be receptive to that which you do not want to hear. When you decide to learn about your faults so that you can be rectified, you open a line of communication with the source of revelatory thought. Maybe that's the same thing as consulting your conscience. Maybe that's the same thing in some manner as a discussion with God. It was in that spirit with some paper in front of me that I asked my question. What shall I do with my newfound pen of light? I asked as if I truly wanted the answer. I waited for a reply. I was holding a conversation between two different elements of myself. I was genuinely thinking or listening in the sense described in Rule 9. Assume that the person you are listening to might know something you don't. That rule can apply as much to yourself as to others. It was me, of course, who asked the question, and it was me, of course, who replied. But those two me's were not the same. I did not know what the answer would be. I was waiting for it to appear in the theater of my imagination. I was waiting for the words to spring out of the void. How can how can a person think up something that surprises him? How can he already not know what he thinks? Where do new thoughts come from? Who or what thinks them? So, and as I know, where do new thoughts come from? Since I had been given, of all things, a pen of light which could write illuminated words in the darkness, I wanted to do the best thing I could with it. So I asked the appropriate question, and almost immediately an answer revealed itself. Write down the words you want inscribed on your soul. I wrote that down. That seemed pretty good, a little on the romantic side, granted, but that was in keeping with the game. Then I upped the ante. I decided to ask myself the hardest question I could think of, and await the answers. If you have a pen of light, after all, you should use it to answer difficult questions. Here was the first. What shall I do tomorrow? The answer came. The most good possible in the shortest period of time. That was satisfying as well. Conjoining an ambitious aim with the demands of maximal efficiency, a worthy challenge. The second question was in the same vein. What shall I do next year? Try to ensure that the good I do will be exceeded only by the good I do the year after that. That seems solid too, a nice extension of the ambitions detailed in the previous answer. I told my friend that I was trying a serious experiment in writing with the pen he had given me. I asked if I could read aloud what I had composed so far. The questions and the answers struck a chord with him too. That was good. That was impetus to come. The next question ended the first set. What shall I do with my life? Aim for paradise and concentrate on today. Ha! I knew what that meant. It's what Geppetto does in the Disney movie Pinocchio when he wishes upon a star. The grandfatherly woodcarver lifts upon his eyes and the twinkling diamond set high above the mundane world of day-to-day human concerns and articulates his deepest desire.